MMA Rants and Raves, UFC 139, Dan Henderson versus Mauricio Shogun Rua. Guys, let's talk about this fight. This fight is going to reignite the memory of the great Pride Fighting Championship organization. And it's kind of interesting because I've been talking about Pride in a prior vlog that I did that was called What is Fedor's Legacy? I put a link below the video in case you haven't watched it. Many people have, and I've gotten a lot of interesting feedback about it. And I've been talking about Pride itself because when you talk about Fedor, Pride is always going to come up because that's where he had most of his success. And I was talking about how a lot of goofs out there ask these questions that how well would have Pride fighters done in the UFC, and my answer to those questions is to answer it with another question. How well would UFC fighters do if they fought guys back in the Pride days? So it's turning the question on its head. That's what you should do. In case the question is implying to disrespect Pride fighters, you just ask the question and throw it right back in their face. Because I mean, it's kind of interesting that I've been talking about this because if you look what's happening recently, right, especially where some guys were being written off like Nogueira, I mean, he wins a fight in unbelievable fashion. Even the guys that predicted that he was going to win, which were few, they said it was going to be submission. And look how he wins that fight with a knockout in the first round. And you have all these Pride guys, you know, that are having a lot of success lately. You have Shogun coming back, who we're going to talk about now, and a very decisive, very quick victory over a tough guy like Forrest Griffin. You have Anderson Silva still dominating, former Pride fighter. You have Josh Barnett, and of course, you know, Dan Henderson, right? I mean, it's what's scary about him is it seems he's getting even better at this stage of his career. So you could just turn the whole question on its head. You know, Mark Hunt, another guy who's winning some fights now. I mean, showed a lot of heart in his past fight. So I mean, you know, my goodness, it's really, I mean, the Pride Fighting Championship had the greatest fighters of all time. So, anyway, let's talk about the fight. Really intriguing fight. The question for Shogun is, we'll start talking about him, is what kind of shape he's going to be in. And that's been the question recently, if you want to talk about Shogun and you want to predict the fight and wonder what's going to happen, it depends on the shape that he's in. I mean, if he's, let me tell you something about Shogun. If he is in the best shape he can beat anybody on any given night. When I say anybody, I even mean heavyweights. I mean, back in Pride, they put this guy against heavyweights. That's the thing about Pride. You had to fight guys. I mean, they put together guys to fight. They were in different weight classes. So that's how tough it was. Despite the fact they had a ring or a cage, I mean, is there really a difference? Well, for some guys like Randy Couture, the cage has helped him, so it's really hard to distinguish which was an advantage or a disadvantage. But, you know, that's a topic for a different time. The bottom line is, great pool of fighters, I mean, amazing fighters that are still dominating today and some still on top of their game. Now, the thing with Shogun, like I said, if he is in the best shape he can be, he can beat anybody and dominate. I mean, he's fought some of the who's who in mixed martial arts, has victories over very, very big names, such as Alistair Overeem, such as Mark Coleman, now Forrest Griffin. He defeated Jackson, Liddell. I mean, he's just a great fighter. Machida, of course, to win the championship. And that's the thing. It's his condition. And it's the injuries, too. So that's a real important aspect to Shogun. Now, as far as Dan Henderson, I mean, this guy is a scary, scary guy. I mean, you have a guy, I personally think, in my opinion, that he is getting better, even better than he always was at this stage of his career. I mean, look at his past 3 fights. He has 3 straight knockouts. This is in TKO, KO, against 3 tough guys. All right? I mean, like Fedor, for example. You know, granted he's been on the decline that he has been on, but he's never been knocked out like that. I mean, his last fight, it was a referee stoppage, but he never got knocked out decisively. That's how hard Dan Henderson hits, how dangerous his punch is. So you really have to consider that. And then, of course, you know, he has that wrestling ability. I mean, he's the top Greco wrestling MMA fighter in the world. So in the wrestling department, based on what he does. I mean, it's unparalleled as far as how good he is in the Greco-Roman wrestling department. So, basically, he seems to be getting better at this stage of his career. And, he has the punching ability. And the other thing about him is, I mean, he's one of these guys that just seems like it's impossible to knock him out. I mean, the guy has a chin like an engine block. I mean, Fedor did hit him. He got hit by Fejao. That's a guy who hits very hard. I mean, he finished King Mo. Fejao did, and then, he hits Henderson. Henderson, many guys, when they get rocked, they get weakened. So at least, if they're not finished, they can get finished later on. But he not only comes back, he knocks his opponent out. So that's how resilient and how tough and how much heart he has. He's incredibly good. And this particular fight, Styles just happened to make fight. And stylistically, it's kind of a matchup problem for Shogun because of the fact he has the wrestling. And the one thing about Shogun is he's not difficult to take down. You can take him down. He's been taken down many times. Mark Coleman took him down. Even Machida took him down in the second fight, the fight that he got knocked out. And Shogun won the championship. But I think that Dan Henderson has the ability to dictate where this fight goes. He's very dangerous standing up. He has very good takedowns. And I think that Shogun should implement a game plan, which I was really surprised that Fedor didn't. I mean, Fedor looked like he was brawling with him, and what Fedor should have done was he should have used his repertoire of his arsenal of submissions against a guy like Henderson who has been submitted before. So, and he didn't do that. You can't brawl with a guy like Henderson. I mean, his chin is like an engine block. I mean, I don't say you can knock him out. He's been hit so hard by really, really heavy hitters, and he just keeps fighting. So, the thing about him is, if Shogun has a chance in this fight, he has to get him, he has to do it on the ground. I mean, he has very dangerous leg locks. He is very good in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So that's his chance. I just don't see Shogun knocking Henderson out. I mean, it's never been done before. Shogun hits really hard. He's very technical, very quick. I would say he's more well-rounded standing up with his kicks and his punches. So the other way is to just outlast Henderson. That's not going to be easy. Not going to be easy to do. The other thing about Henderson is his cardio is amazing. I mean, even now, he can get deep into fights. So, it's really going to come down to that. It's going to come down to the shape of Shogun. If Shogun's in very good shape, he has a good chance in this fight. But if he's not, and we just haven't seen enough, as far as Griffin, the fight ended too early, which, of course doesn't say that, we need to see more from Shogun. The fact that it ended early means that Shogun is looking really good. But the question is, how will he do in a war? And fighting Henderson, he is going to be in a war. There's no question about that. So, I'm going to make a prediction in this fight. I just think that Henderson has the ability, based on his abilities, to dictate where this fight goes, whether it's standing up, whether it's on the ground. He's got that wrestling. I think he can control Shogun. I think he has a possibility even to put Shogun away. So it really depends on how the fight goes. But I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to go with Dan Henderson for the win. I'd like to know what you think about the fight and the UFC 139 card. Please leave your comments below the video, rate this video, and subscribe. And thank you for tuning in.